Alright, let's talk about another form of alternative investment. You know, from time to time I cover these kind of topics, talked about wine in the past and how to store it, buy it, get around these different types of things in Europe, how I did that type of deal in the past. And I'll talk some about watches, and now I'm going to talk about another form of alternative investment that I've taken for granted for a long time, but I realized that a lot of people, especially from more the southern part of the world, might find this very interesting and find it to be a rarity worth exploring. So we will talk about owning land. Land used to grow forest, so basically owning forest. How is this an alternative investment? How does it actually work? I have some specific examples from Sweden in this case, and we can put some different numbers. First of all, the land that the forest grows on is valued based on the fertility of the land. In Swedish we call it bonitet, a very fancy word, just basically for the amount of nutrition in the land. We can have, for example, granite, we can have chalk, we can have different type of nutritions that causes the forest to grow at different paces. So for example, if we take Sweden, we will have more barren land to the north where growing will be slower, and the southern parts has quicker growing forest as well as a bit better climate. However, in the region where I'm from, it's more of a middle quality, and in general it takes 30 years for the forest to grow in those cases. So from seeding it to be able to shovel it and sell it off to a forestry company. So in terms of taking home cold hard cash, this is something that you will be able to do after 30 years in this case if you have forest with middle quality. That's a very long time to wait for a payoff. And add to the fact that there are indeed some risks. If there's a small storm, sometimes little hurricane might come in America. For some forest owners in Europe, we don't really have hurricanes, but we have strong wind. And if you watch the news, you will often hear the news anchor say that, oh, this cost billions in damage. But come on, how is it costing billions in damage? It's blowing out in nowhere. Well, this is all the trees coming down, the cost of timber. It's gonna be there, it's gonna rot, it's gonna be hard to get to, hard to shovel, large area in the same time. There's going to be a lot of value destruction. You can insure this, you can choose to not insure this. It's up to the individual landowner. However, we have this risk, so we need to look at climate as well when we look at these type of investing opportunities. And it's also a bit more legality to it. I know, for example, in the region where I'm from, we've had inheritance in a lot of cases where land has been stripped into different parts, and these parts have gotten smaller and smaller, so you will have this super weird land borders that's very thin and stretching for a kilometer, and it doesn't really make sense. So in terms of legality, it's a lot harder to make a deal. However, you can even find these pieces of land that are up for sale on basic websites. If you Google it, it's hard to value them, especially if you lack knowledge of the industry. I myself am not an expert in it. I've only heard older gentlemen talk about this type of deal making when I lived back in my home region. But this is a alternative investment opportunity that's out there. And in a lot of cases, you will have some sort of arrangement with a forestry company that will be interested in purchasing this. So you can make an option in some cases, or you can just make some other type of private individual deal. But the company can even help replant trees, they help you shovel the timber. And if you drive around in little roads in forest, you will see these piles of timber as well that's laying there. So this will be from the shoveling, and they will need to stay there and dry for a bit because you can't use the raw material straight away. It needs to dry up a little bit before it's processed properly by a sawmill. So if you don't want to do all this hassle by yourself, you know, you're a one-man show maybe, then you can outsource this as well. In terms of taxes, this gets to be more complicated, but you can also make a lot of gains in this area. In, for example, Sweden, a lot of people will have a company and own the forest via that company, so you won't own it directly. I'm not going to go into the different types of companies in Sweden, but this I've found when talking to people from different countries is an international way of doing deals. You want to own it via a company for tax purposes, for write-offs, and this is also something that you can scale when you do this alternative type of investing into forest land. So I hope you found this interesting. I hope maybe it broadened your horizon and get you curious about doing more research into this type of investing. Maybe you want to do it for yourself, maybe just like to educate yourself on different investment opportunities that's out there. Always happy to steal your curiosity, and as always, hope you make a ton of money whatever investments you decide to make. Take care now. Bye bye.